Knowles on the News. Susan Knowles.
So here we are, the day after Wisconsin primaries, where Cruz won handily in Wisconsin. And now we move on to the next place. And it was kind of surprising. In some ways, that Sanders, I should mention it, even though I don't really care, he won Wisconsin primaries as well. But here we go. We're on to, I don't know, what round are we on to now with the Lion Ted and Never Cruz movement? It seems like we can never really get away from those two things. And I don't know. I've said this before. This election is the most bizarre. And it's going down a very, I don't know, kind of going down a dark path. We're starting to really turn and head towards the convention in July. And it doesn't seem like it's going to be this, oh, great, here we go to the convention. Isn't this wonderful? Let's all have a great time. No, we're going in there with accusations that Ted Cruz is trying to steal the GOP delegates. Paul Ryan is trying to steal them. The Tooth Fairy is trying to steal them. You name one and put a name in. I don't care. It's really amazing because we have been extremely distracted by all of this. You know, as I've said a number of times, the Democrats, they've narrowed it down to two people. They're hammering it out between Sanders and Clinton, and they're done. Basically, they're done. And here we have John Kasich. I can think of a better name for him, but I won't use it. And Cruz and Trump. And we have this now, you know, all the way we've been limping along. Okay, well, who's doing what? And let's throw some mudslinging happens back and forth between Cruz and Trump. And really, most of it comes from Trump. And I know you're not going to agree with me, but Ted Cruz is super PAC, does things and did things, I guess, with Melania's picture that Ted Cruz isn't responsible for. And I know you're going to say, well, but Trump said he knows those people. Yeah, well, Trump knows people too in super PACs. So you could make the same argument on his side that whatever Roger Stone is saying, because I believe Roger Stone, and at least he's an ally and probably a part of the super PAC for Trump, that Donald Trump doesn't have, while he may know Roger Stone, he's really not responsible for what Roger Stone says or does. Why not? If Cruz is responsible for super PACs and people he knows, then so is Donald Trump. You know, again, you may want Trump, and I get that. I understand. Everybody wants their candidate to win. I get it. But when you're doing that, you can't point fingers at one side and not point fingers at your own side for doing exactly the same thing. It just doesn't fit in with reality. And maybe we've gone beyond reality. Maybe there is no longer any reality. Because a lot of this, I feel like I'm in the twilight zone with this election process. I really do. It's getting absolutely over the top. Well, no, it has gotten over the top ridiculous. It's not getting there. It's here. And it's just getting worse. And all this talk about, Lion Ted, again, these are tactics that people do. Saul Alinsky, people on the progressive left, they give you a name and a label so that you can go around and use that label and not forget. Get this negative connotation and you keep it in your head, and then you believe everything that goes along with that negative connotation, whether it's founded in truth or not. You just say, oh, well, that's right, that's Lion Ted. So he probably did that, and he probably did that, without doing any research, without having any basis in fact. I really don't understand why people won't go and do research. I know it takes time, but this is important. And I do understand. I was on radio in San Diego for an hour and a half last week. I was a guest, KFMB, 760 KFMB in San Diego. And the whole argument, and the whole discussion, and it turns into an argument, I guess, was on Trump and Cruz. And we had callers calling in and asking questions and all of this. And it really hit home to me that the people on the Cruz side think the Trump supporters are really nasty and mean and will do anything for Trump, while the people on the Trump side, there's Trump supporters, feel exactly the same way about the Cruz supporters. So don't think that this is something that is just who Ted Cruz is or who Donald Trump is. This is on both sides. We're probably equally divided, closely equally divided, if not equally divided. And my question has been all along, with everybody who's being nasty to the other side, how in the world do you think you're going to come together and beat the Democrats? Now, I realize that the people on the Trump side have been told, we can do this. We're going to go independent if we have to. Whatever it takes. We don't need everybody else. Well, you do. You can't do this alone. I mean, that's not how elections work. That's not how reality works. If you have a substantial number of voters on the Trump side or on the Cruz side sitting at home because they don't want to vote for Donald Trump, you're not going to win. If you have people who decide that they're going to write in Cruz rather than vote for Trump, you're not going to win. And if you go third party on the Trump side and everybody else doesn't come with you, you're not going to win. All along when people have been sort of in this tug of war with either side and all the nastiness on either side, and I'll have to tell you, I've seen more nastiness on the Trump side. I will have to admit I have. I don't know if the Cruz people are as nasty. I don't know. I mean, maybe. I have no idea. I just know what I've seen. I just know from the people I've tried to talk to how I've been treated. So it comes from my own experience. But instead of spending all the time being nasty, all the time should have been spent on bringing people together, not with this nastiness that has separated people and continues to separate people every single day. And again, you can sit there and say, I don't really care. We don't really need those people. But that is absolutely not true. And have you ever thought that maybe this is exactly what the Democrats have wanted, the progressives have wanted, even in both sides, that they want us to be so at each other in conflict that they just go and do whatever they want? And I know I hear over and over about stilling the delegates at the convention. This is how it's been done. It's been done like this before. I mean, people are allowed to change their minds about the delegates. The delegates themselves are allowed to change their mind. It's not called stealing. It's called that's the process. And it's been the process for I don't know how long. Look it up. And so, again, you go back to these labels. Lion Ted. Okay, Lion Ted. I'm sure he steals too. And that sticks in your head rather than saying, has this ever been done before? Is this a process that is allowed? Are we able to do this? And the answer is yes, we have done that. It's been done several times. Even though the popular vote may be for a particular candidate, the delegates, it goes down to the delegates, what the delegates vote. And if you don't like the system, then, I guess you have to change the system. And I'm sure you're saying, well, that's what we're trying to do with Donald Trump. Well, you can't change the system by lying about it. You can't change the system by saying, well, they're trying to steal the votes when that's not true. Because it's been done before. It is part of the process. It is legal to do. So don't call it stealing. You may say, I don't like the process. We want the person with the popular votes to get the nomination. That's what we want. I mean, that's fine. Say it like that. But stop making things up. Because it just makes people who are sitting there on the fence whether they should vote for Cruz or Trump, it makes people go, wow, why are they lying about that? Because they're sitting here calling Cruz a liar when they're lying about things. Because it's intentionally using names, labels, whatever, statements to mislead the public. I mean, we have to start looking at that. You may want something badly enough, but does that mean you throw your ethics out the window to get what you want? Do I think that there needs to be new things that happen in America to put this country back on a path that we haven't been on in quite a long time, and that we have a lot of corruption? Absolutely, I believe that. But the way to get rid of corruption is not through being corrupt or lying or misleading. That's just not the way to do it. Then you're making yourself exactly like the people that you claim to hate. You have to do it in a way that's above board, in a way that's truthful, and lead the American public in truth, not in deception, lies, misnomers, whatever you want to call it. Because then, really, you're just as bad. The truth will always set you free. It may not be right now when you want it, but it will set you free. And you're not doing anybody any favors by trying to make things up. I mean, we could have a long time ago, way back when, a couple of weeks ago, maybe, not weeks, but months maybe, we could have had a Trump-Cruz ticket. Now, some of you now will say, well, gosh, I'm glad we didn't. But back then, that was a real possibility. But because we have been nasty to each other, that's no longer a possibility. There's not even a Cruz-Trump possibility, which I know that most Trump supporters never wanted that. Okay, I get that. But, it's what I said on my radio interview last week on the local station in San Diego. I am not a Cruz supporter. I am not a Trump supporter. I am an American supporter. I am pro-America. That's what my interest is, and that's where my interests lie. I'm sick and tired of these candidates fighting with each other. I'm sick and tired of the mudslinging back and forth. I'm sick and tired, again, of the deception, whether it's intentional or not. I'd have to say it is. But I'm tired of it. I'm watching my country be flushed down the toilet when people are sitting there, candidates who should be uniting the country, are dividing the country. And again, I think that Cruz is more a uniter, Trump is more a divider. And I know you're going to disagree with that. But when I turn on the TV and I hear Donald Trump with his lying Ted, that's the first words out of his mouth, lying Ted, and goes on Twitter, lying Ted. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And has Ted Cruz done some things that I'm not happy with? Yeah, he has. But his focus has not been on Donald Trump. And again, I know you're going to disagree with me, but read his tweets, look back at some of his videos. It's not Trump all the time. As with Trump, it's Cruz, lying Ted all the time. It gets old fast. I don't want high schoolers, and I'm not trying to insult the high schoolers, but I don't want the high schoolers to be running the country. If we have two men, and I don't count Kasich, if we have two men who are vying for the position, I want a mature adult leading the country. That's where I'm at. And I have seen immaturity on both sides, and more immaturity on Donald Trump's side. Just a fact. And again, I know that some of you, maybe most of you, won't agree with me, but just look at the facts. I'm not making this up because I'm trying to convince people one way or the other. I don't care anymore which way you vote. I really don't. Because I'm not sure it even matters anymore because of the way that people are acting. I want people to get down to brass tacks here. I want to hear What are you going to do for this country? What are you going to do to help America? What is your game plan? Why should I go out and vote for you? I'm as sick and tired of the GOP as most of you out there. I am tired of seeing us in the majority with the House and the Senate and doing absolutely nothing with it. And really, the only thing we've done with it is give it away. So I understand. I'm tired of it. I do want to change. Is Cruz the answer? I don't know. Is Trump the answer? I don't know. I really don't know at this point. Because I'm not hearing what I need to hear in order to make up my mind about what I should do. I've seen some things where in the very beginning, I was really pro-Trump. I'll be honest with you. I really was. I was thinking, great. Here's a breath of fresh air, a man who's telling it like it is, and as far as this country is concerned. And then all of that turned to every candidate that he was running against. Little Rubio, Dr. Carson is a child molester, pedophile, whatever he called him, whatever he called Jeb, and on and on and on, and Lion Ted. Okay, all right, we get it. You're not happy with the competition, and this is the way you get the competition out, or you want to belittle the whatever. See, when it turned off the focus about what you're going to do for this country and for me as an American, that's where you kind of lost me. I don't care about Melania. I don't care about Heidi Cruz. I don't care about your feelings about Ted or your feelings about Donald. I don't care. I care about what are you going to do for the American people, and how is this going to be different from everything else that I've seen? And so far, the way this going back and forth between the candidates, that's not any different than I'm seeing every day with Obama and the Republicans. Really, what's different? Name calling. See that every day. Oh, the Republicans, they're not doing this. Or whatever. I'm so sick of this being all about politicians, political moves, whatever. Bring it back to the country. Bring it back to what's important to the American people. And I know that, a lot of people are just on the bandwagon and can't wait to get out there and bash other supporters. I understand that. It's not going to get us anywhere. What it's going to get is Hillary elected. I know some of you and even the Trump supporters I've heard say, and even Donald Trump, oh, that's not going to happen. I can win against Hillary. Maybe you can. I don't know. Not with these childish insults back and forth. I mean, she's a child. Do we have to stoop as low as Hillary and get out there and have a presidential debate, nomination debate between two people that are both mudslinging and childish? Jeez. I want a presidential president. I want somebody who I believe can lead this country. I don't want moronic, sophomoric type of childish routines that I'm seeing. I don't know how better to put that. I've just, and again, I understand there are people on the Trump side that everything I have just said, they can say that didn't happen. Oh, that's not true. I don't know why you think that. On and on and on and on. But if you go back and you look at the videos, you go back and you look at Twitter, you go back and just listen and see what people are writing on the Trump campaign, it's what's happening. I'm sorry. It's what's happening. The name calling of Ben Carson and Rubio, it's there. It's factual. I haven't heard Ted Cruz doing that. I didn't hear him in the very beginning do that. I did hear Rubio do that. So, again, neither side is perfect. I get that. They're not. But convince me that you care enough about America that you can actually put on your big boy pants and lead the country and not sit and have these tit for tat, back and forth crap sessions between the candidates that have nothing to do with how you are going to help America. Okay? Done with it. I'm done with it from the Trump side, from the Cruz side. Kasich, I've been done with you for since the beginning of the campaign. I'm done with it. And I think a lot of Americans are saying, you know what, if this is the way it's going to be, I'm just going to sit home and not vote. Well, I'm not one to sit home and not vote, and that's not the thing to do. But I understand how people are getting there. I understand how they're feeling. Because when they're turning on TV and this is all they're seeing, it's not worth their time. And I'll have to say, there's another figure that figures into this. And again, it's Donald Trump's ally, Roger Stone. And there was a man that was, a year ago on the Trump campaign, he quit the campaign. And he went out and new books came out. And I understand. I'm sure he probably quit the campaign so he could be more of a spokesperson for Donald Trump on his own without having to worry about any rules and regulations and all that, that comes with being a presidential candidate. I get that. But this guy, Roger Stone, the more I hear about him, the less I'm sitting here going, wow, you want this person to speak for you? And again, I think he's part of the Trump super PAC. And if that's true, then Trump has no control over that, right? Just like Ted Cruz has no control over his super PAC. But if you don't believe that and you believe Donald Trump, then Donald Trump has some control over Roger Stone. Whatever. But some of the things that I'm hearing is this hashtag Days of Rage. And I understand that has nothing to do, Roger Stone has said, I'm not calling for people to be violent. Okay, I get that. Why do you need to use a name from 1969 that did include violence? I'm not saying you're advocating violence. I get it. I heard what you said. I believe you. Then pick another title. Stop using things that remind people of violence and conjure that up in the minds of the American people. Stop doing that. You want a Days of Rage? Change it to, we're going to discuss what we don't like. I don't know. Come up with some other name that has nothing to do of a significant time in American history when there was violence. But the other things that he's doing, I think, are just out of line. For example, he's threatened to release hotel names and room numbers of anti-Trump delegates at the GOP convention. To me, that is just Saul Alinsky, progressive left. That's their tactics. Oh, we're going to release. What have we seen in the news with the people in the media releasing addresses? They released the address, the home address of Ted Cruz because they didn't like what he was doing. And this goes on and on when people don't get their way on the left. This is the tactics that they do. I don't think anybody should be releasing Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, or John Kasich's hotel address, room number, or anything else. You're just trying to bully people. And Roger Stone, I understand you've got 2 books out that you're pushing, and maybe this is a way to get some publicity. It's the wrong way, in my opinion. I mean, it's fine for you to come out and have an opinion about things, but you don't have to threaten to do things like that. Threaten to do things that only the progressive left would do. It brings down, again, the whole process of what we're trying to do here. And I understand I don't want them to steal the convention. Sorry, it's not stealing the convention when they're following a process that has always been done. Change the process if you don't like it. I get that. Try to change it. Do it the right way. But don't do it this way. You're no better than everybody else who does this type of tactic when you do this. And then Roger Stone goes on to say, I think Ted Cruz is D.C. Madam's Texas customer. Give us proof. I have heard nothing but back and forth rhetoric in the Trump campaign and now with Roger Stone. If you have some proof, bring it out. with the National Enquirer. Absolutely no proof has come forward. Come forward when you have proof. And as you may recall, and I know everybody doesn't, nobody wants to think about this again because we want to just kind of skirt it aside, put it aside, and move on. But Michael Savage, one of the biggest and staunchest Trump supporters, came out and told Donald Trump, unless you disavow that National Enquirer piece about the rumors about Ted Cruz having an affair with 5 women or whatever it was, then I'm going to withdraw my support for you. So there you have somebody who maybe you can look up to and say, okay, well, it matters what he thinks. And if you do, then remember that's what was said. And there's been no proof in regards to that National Enquirer story. And there's no proof that I've seen yet. Okay, if he is on that D.C. Madams Texas customer list, I want to know that. I want to see that. Give me the proof. Have none. Nothing has come out. And then we have him saying, well, but Anonymous highlighted the tweets that show Ted Cruz's number. I don't know if it's the same list I saw, but I saw that list, and it was so painfully obvious that a 2-year-old could see that the number, like the number 2, I recall, that was put in there was different than all of the other numbers. Okay, so you're going to tell me that the madam went through and put in those numbers? I don't think so. I think we all know who, if anyone, changed those numbers. And again, if you're gonna lie about somebody, then for God's sakes, get the forgeries correct. And of course, I'm being sarcastic because I would never tell you to do anything concerning forgery or anything else. But don't look at the American public like we're total morons. That's what the progressive left does to the American public. That's insulting. So if you have something, if you have information that proves these things, trust me, I want to hear it and I'll talk about it all over the place. Because I want the truth. I'm after the truth. I am after who can be our president and do the job presidentially and do the job that the American people want, which is in the best interest of the American public. That's what I care about. So if you've got some damning information, let me hear it. If you've got it on Kasich, I want to know it. If you have it on Trump, I want to hear it. You can't tell me that Trump is squeaky clean and Ted Cruz is the Antichrist. Come on. I'm sure that if people cared enough, they could go out and dig up some stuff on Donald Trump. And I don't want to hear, oh, well, Donald Trump has come clean on everything. Come on. You know that's not realistic. You know that's not the way of the world. You know it. In your gut, you know it. You may want Donald Trump so badly that you're willing to overlook it, but let's not overlook the truth. And then in a Breitbart article, Stone once again talks about, okay, there's been voter irregularities in states where Cruz has won. Okay, duh. Isn't that in like every state we could think of? How long is voter irregularities? How long has that been going on? I don't know. Before the 70s, I can tell you that. And he's saying that he's got sworn affidavits. And he can show that delegates in Texas fraudulently elected these people, and they ought to put handcuffs on Ted Cruz. Okay, Roger Stone, give us the proof. All I want's the proof. It's so easy for you to go out and make these statements. And again, having these psychological little pictures in people's minds associated with Lion Ted, let's put handcuffs on him, et cetera, et cetera. You need proof to back it up. And let me just tell you something. Roger Stone is, I'm sure, a smart man. And he knows that with a public figure like Ted Cruz would have to prove malice in order to bring a lawsuit or anything else against Roger Stone. And he also knows Ted Cruz isn't going to go after Roger Stone and file a lawsuit, most likely, against him. Number one, he doesn't have time. Number two, Roger Stone's not worth his time. And everybody, I mean, I don't know who Roger Stone is exactly, other than an author and a radio talk show host, and I get all that, and that's wonderful. And he's an ally of Trump. I get all of that. But isn't he trying to make himself more relevant, perhaps, in this election than he really is? I don't know. I'm getting that impression because I see no proof behind anything. I see a lot of allegations. I see no proof. And I really don't understand why the Trump supporters, why you listen to Roger Stone and buy exactly everything that he's saying, hook, line, and sinker, when I know in your gut that you know that you should never accuse anybody and just condemn them without proof. I know you know that. You wouldn't want that to happen to your family. You wouldn't accept that happening to your family. And I know you're tired of seeing a lot of injustice. I get that. But you can't be like those people that you don't want to be in power or that you don't want to continue to run this country. You can't be just like the people that you hate or the people that you're trying to change. Then you become just one of them. There are better ways to do it. Speaking out is one of them. Peaceful protest is another thing. And I know people are saying, well, you know what? That's not working, and so we're going to have to do something different. Well, then you're going to end up in jail. That's all I can say. You really will. If you break the law, you're going to end up in jail. And if there's going to be civil war, then a lot of people are going to end up in jail, and unfortunately, probably people are going to be hurt or, God forbid, killed. It's not the way to do it. It never works. It doesn't. You look back at the 1960s. It didn't work. We had a lot of dead people, including Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a political activist that should never have been killed, lost his life. So, and we had a lot of assassinations during those times. Robert Kennedy, John F. Kennedy. You can't have lawlessness and expect good things to come out of it, okay? And I know that I'm not speaking to all the Trump supporters on that. I know that all of you aren't thinking that way. But you have to be careful who is filling your head with stuff and why. Got to ask yourself, why are you believing it without doing your own research? And I know what that does. It stirs up emotions in people. And then they start thinking on emotion rather than thinking rationally. And that goes for everybody. I don't care which candidate you're for. If you're thinking that way, if you're so anti-Trump because you're so pro-Cruz, you've got an issue. You know, if you're willing to hurt someone or even say malicious things about them that you know aren't true, you got a problem. I don't care who it's against. If you're doing that, you have an issue, and you really need to think about that and what's happening in your life that would cause you to be that way. And then once again, with Roger Stone, he comes out and he says in the Daily Caller, when he was writing this with somebody else, Cruz's connection with D.C. Wall Street establishment, and he quotes Lenin, "There are no morals in politics. There's only expedience. A scoundrel may be of use to us just because he is a scoundrel." And he goes on to say, "I can't think of a better description of Ted Cruz's relationship with D.C. Wall Street establishment, Cruz being the scoundrel, of course." Come on. Really? I mean, again, what is this doing to help the country? And if you say, well, it's helping the country because it's getting rid of Ted Cruz so we can have Donald Trump, that's not the way to do it. You can't just make things up about people and hope they stick and hope your person wins because it's all built on a lie that way. Whatever. Give me an example of something built on a lie that ever worked out well. And some of you would say, you know what, the whole Obama administration was built on a lie. Okay, and how well is that working for us? How well in the last 8 years did that work for us? How well is lying and going, if you're lying and having these conflicts back and forth between Cruz and Trump, Trump and Cruz, blah, 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 and Hillary wins, how well is that going to work out? I mean, I know we're at the crossroads. You feel it. I feel it. I get it. But let's not lose our morals and ethics. Let's not lose ourselves in this election. And let's be careful who we are listening to. I think a lot of you, whether you're Cruz supporters, Trump supporters, or whatever, I think you know in your heart of hearts what you believe, but you're allowing yourself to get swayed easily at times because you're so frustrated. And if you have a particular candidate that's saying what you want to hear, then you're like, oh boy, okay. He's on board with what I'm thinking, and I'm just going to let all of my rational thoughts and let those go out the window. And again, whether you're Trump or Cruz, and I say this and I mean this, if you have something about any one of these candidates that's damaging and that would hurt our country and would make this candidate a candidate that should not even be considered for the presidency of the United States, I want to know it. And I will get the word out. I don't care if it's Cruz. I don't care if it's Trump. I don't care if it's Kasich. I don't care. I will spread the word far and wide as far as I can possibly do it and tell everybody what the truth is. But in order to do that, it has to be backed with factual information. I'm not going to go out and start talking about what this person did or didn't do when there's no facts, no truth to support it. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to support something like that. I'm just not. I'm not going to get on the bandwagon for either one. And if anybody's seen my posts, I post for Cruz stories. I post for Trump stories. I do that on my Facebook page. I tweet things out for both of them. Because again, I'm interested in my country. This isn't about a man. This is about a country, something much bigger than any man. And, I've had people say, oh, are you going to pledge your allegiance to Trump? I know that was a big deal. He's having everybody raise their hand, pledge allegiance. No, I'm not going to pledge my allegiance for Trump. I'm not going to pledge my allegiance for Cruz. I'm going to pledge my allegiance to God and God only. These people who are running for president aren't God. They're fallible, just like you and I. Why would I pledge my allegiance to them? The only time you do something like that is in the military, because you have to, and you're pledging your allegiance to do what you're called to do. I'm not called to support these people. I am called in my own heart, in my own mind, to do what's right for this country and for the people of this country. And I'm not pledging allegiance to any presidential candidate. Sorry, just won't happen. But I think this country, we are beyond in real trouble. We've gone further down in real trouble because, again, all that we have done for months is attack each other while Rome burns. While the Democrats go out and do basically whatever they're doing and practically wrapping it all up, we're nowhere near wrapping it all up. And all eyes are going to be on that convention in July. And there's going to be a lot of stuff happening there, protests and everything else, I fear. Black Lives Matter, MoveOn.org, anybody and everybody who can come in there and disrupt a convention. That's what they're going to do. And, these candidates, we need to pray for both of these candidates, because I'll tell you, I think that both of these candidates are in trouble because, from what I understand, Donald Trump is now wearing a vest, bulletproof vest. We're going backwards instead of forwards. We need to pray for their protection, Cruz and Trump. Pray for their protection, that people aren't going to go so overboard that they would do something stupid and illegal. And, I mean, to think that here we are. I mean, I saw this in the 60s. I really did. I was a kid, but I saw all that was happening. I watched as people were assassinated. I mean, Robert Kennedy assassinated right there on TV. Right after he finished his speech, turns around, walks out, gets shot, boom. And they show everything on TV. President Kennedy. Oh, God. Even Ronald Reagan. They tried the attempt of Ronald Reagan. Is this what we want to go back to? Do we want to fire people up so much that people are willing to take people out? And I'm not saying it's anybody's fault. People who are going to kill somebody or hurt somebody are going to do it whether you fire them up or not. And you have a right to fire them up if you want to, as long as free speech is free speech. But let's be sure when we're saying things that we're being truthful and that we're doing everything right. And we're not doing it just to get people worked up over things we don't even have proof about. It's a sad state of affairs when we come to a point where a presidential candidate has to wear a bulletproof vest. I mean, that is absolutely absurd, ridiculous, and horrible. I mean, really horrible that we have come back around from the 60s to this point and having to do basically the same thing. It's absurd. We really need to somehow pull this all together, elect a president, again, that will forward the will and the wishes of the American people, and to bring this country back to some semblance of what we used to have, but go beyond what we used to have and make us a better country. And I can be honest with you, I don't know if that's possible at this point. I really don't. I will say that if we keep fighting each other like this, it's absolutely not going to be possible. We're going to hand the election over to the Democrats, and then you can just kiss it all goodbye. That's where I'm at. You know, and when we're sitting there and we are just focused on the candidates and, you know, this back and forth, we don't see other things. We're distracted by things. And something really important happened yesterday, and nobody really talked about it. And that is the California State Law Enforcement Agency yesterday went to the home of the activist who you may remember shot the video against Planned Parenthood. They went yesterday, raided and seized his equipment, including computers and storage devices that held all of his videos. Now, again, this guy, as you may recall, he wasn't even named in a grand jury hearing, but they indicted him at that hearing. And anyway, his name wasn't even anybody on the list that they were looking into, but they decided, oh, okay, well, you know, since we're here, we'll just save another trip back and let's go after this guy. So investigators with the California Department of Justice on Tuesday raided the home of David DeLayden. I don't know how you say his name. The anti-abortion activist behind a series of undercover videos targeting Planned Parenthood. This is according to the activist. Authorities seized a laptop and multiple hard drives from his Orange County apartment. That was what he said in an email. The equipment contained all of the video that he had filmed as part of his 30-month project, including some very damning footage that has yet to be released to the public. Now, it just so happens, you know, that there's an election coming up. I don't know if you know that. Being sarcastic here. But in June, we're running an election. And a spokeswoman for the California Attorney General, Kamala Harris, that's the one who's looking to get a foot up here in the election. She's a Democrat, said she could not comment on any ongoing investigation. But the raid confirms that California is among the states looking into possible criminal activity on the part of the activist and his organization, the Center for Medical Progress, which have been the center of controversy since releasing videos purporting to show that Planned Parenthood illegally sells fetal tissue for a profit. Great. And again, she's looking to run for some office. I can't remember which one because, frankly, I'm not going to vote for her. I don't know if it's for outgoing Barbara Boxer, if she wants to be governor, something. So she's trying to make a name for herself. So you're going to see people like her and other people who are running for office step forward and do whatever they have to do in order to make a name for themselves. And in California, the laws are pretty strict in regards to when you can videotape or record somebody. And according to the activist, he's done everything that he should have done. He did it legally. But they're going to make his life a living hell. You can bet on that. Because they don't want anybody ever to come out and do something remotely close to this again. To the beloved Planned Parenthood. So they're probably not done with him. I'm surprised, and hopefully he made copies that are someplace else of all of these videos. I really hope he has them, like several copies, locked up somewhere, so that when these videos, I don't know, get destroyed accidentally, aren't returned, whatever the case may be, that he's going to be able to have protection and all of that. But I mean, this is, again, if you think the election is bad, what about this? And as we're out there lying Tedding it and never trumping it, this is what's happening. This is the real stuff that's happening. Not saying the election's not real. Sometimes I wonder. But this is the stuff that's happening that we're not paying attention to because we're so concerned about what's going to happen with this election. And again, have you noticed how quiet it has been in the White House? Where we used to every week, every day practically, have Obama come out and say something that we didn't like. He's being very quiet. You know why? Because he's so happy that we're all sitting there calling each other names and hating on each other and being in this constant state of conflict. My only question is, what in the world is going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, that is being kept quiet because we're distracted? That's the part you really don't want to know. Actually, you do want to know it, but you're probably never going to know it. I tell you, sometimes, I don't know if you remember, if anybody out there listening was even alive back in the 70s. I think it was like somewhere mid-70s. I'm not even sure anymore. But there used to be this thing where, and it was very, very popular at the time. It was called a terrarium. And it just, it's the Latin for land, right? Earth, terra. But you would take let's say a fish bowl or a fish aquarium. And instead of putting water in it, instead of putting fish in it, you would go out and you'd get some dirt. You'd put some type of greenery in there that could grow, that would make it look like, you have this lush land or something. Put some rocks in there. Put some other little figures in there. Maybe a little house-shaped something, or a little person figure, whatever little cute little thing that you wanted. But the idea would be that you would have something in there that would grow, and it would look just like your piece of property, maybe with a little house on it, little people around there, but it would be in this little cute little terrarium. And you'd put the lid on the terrarium so that there would be condensation, and that condensation would water your little plant, whatever you had in there, and it would grow. And you kind of look at that as a microcosm. This is a little small glimpse of what the world looks like in a terrarium. And as I said, they were very popular. Everybody had one. It was the talk of the town. Kind of like the what was it? Those pet rocks that everybody had. It's like, whoa, isn't this great? And you're sitting there spending your time with this terrarium. and again, I sometimes feel like today, especially the way the world is, the way this election is going, the upheavals in the world, ISIS, all of that stuff. I don't know. Do you feel the same way that sometimes that you're just like in a little terrarium, that somebody just kind of plucked you down over on here, and they put a little bush around you and a little grass over here, and they put the lid on, and it's just inside this little microcosm, and the world is kind of manipulating you as you sit in your little terrarium, unaware of what's going on. And of course, I'm just joking about all that. But in a way, it really feels like that sometimes, that we have sort of lost our control of our daily lives, or of the world, of our political party, on and on. And that we're just being sort of manipulated by the powers that be around us. And I know that you feel that way as well. Most people that I talk to that are aware that the sun comes up and sets in the afternoon are aware that that's how they feel. Now, if some of the people I've seen, and I think it's Mark Dice, in his videos when he's like the man on the street asking questions, I know those people probably have absolutely no idea of what I'm talking about. But for the majority of you out there who are very intelligent and are aware of what's going on, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You just feel like no matter what you do, that there's some person out there, some group, some powerful, political party that kind of controls everything anyway. And it's like, why bother? Well, there are no longer any terrariums. They're gone. They're no longer popular. And no longer is it popular for us to just be sitting around and being controlled by the powers that be out there who want things their way and want us to just live with it. I get that. I understand it. And there are things that we can do. And I've said this over and over, and I know nobody wants to hear this, but it starts at the local level. It starts with never allowing these people to get on any, even school board. Because once that happens, the chain starts, that going up that ladder begins. And we have to stop those people. If you want good people in the political party, then you have to bring them up that way. You can't just let somebody get on and just move up the ladder while you see their corruption. And at some point, if they become corrupt, then you get them out. For the very longest time, we haven't had a GOP that listens to us. And for the longest time, that GOP looks so much like the progressive left. It's hard to tell either one of them apart. When you get those people to that level, it's hard to get rid of them. Paul Ryan needs to go. John McCain needs to go. So many people. And I've even heard lately rumors about Mia Love. She was the sweetheart everybody just couldn't wait to get in because she was going to make a difference. And she was the one that said, I'm going to join the Black Caucus because I want to change them from the inside out. And from what I'm understanding, she's become one of them. You can't be in circles like that on a daily basis with hanging around power at your fingertips and not be persuaded in some way. Not saying that everybody falls, but in something in your way of thinking is at least going to change. And you have to start questioning, what am I doing? And we have seen corrupt politicians over and over again. Right now, what is the governor of Alabama? They're trying to get rid of him because of who he is and lying to the American public. Go for it. And this involved, his personal life. And they're saying, well, but it's not only about his personal life, it's about other things. I don't care. If he's that way in his personal life, then perhaps you should get rid of him. It's kind of like people excused a lot of what Clinton did in his personal life. Well, his personal life kind of went over into what he was doing in the White House in some ways. Or he could have been manipulated because of it. On and on and on. I mean, we've gotten rid of generals and higher ups in the military for less, right, Obama? So I think that we just have to start looking at things differently in this country. Start looking at long term. How do we handle things long term rather than this short term? We'll just get them out next year or whatever. We have seen for the past 8 years, and it happened even before then, corruption just bringing us to this point where people are questioning the validity of the Constitution. Should we just get rid of the Constitution? Or it's an old document. If the Constitution were in use as it should be, as much as it used to be, I think there would be a number of politicians that would be in prison right now. At least I can think of one right off the top of my head. But we can't also say, well, I'm willing to put the Constitution aside for this election until we get things back on track and then bring back the Constitution. Never works. Never works. Again, you can't lose your morals and ethics when you're trying to fight corruption. You become just like those people. And it would be just like going into a corrupt police department and saying, well, you know what, I'll just be corrupt for a while and I'll do the same things, but it's okay because at the whole time I'm doing this, I'll be working to get rid of the corruption. No, you'll just become corrupt. And I think that, we've been kicked in the teeth for so long that we all are tired. And we are looking for just a savior to come along, to help us in the GOP turn things around. But there's only one savior, and it's not a man, and you're not going to find it in politics. And that's why it's so important when you're trying to make any decision that involves this election or anything else of importance. You turn to God first. You focus there. You ask for clarity to be able to see some of the tactics that are being used. And you just ask for clarity. And again, pray for these candidates. Really, they need your prayers. Even for Bernie and Hillary. Pray that God's hand will be in all of it and that we all do the right thing. That we can all try to make this the best country that it can be, and that we don't do rash things just because we're using our emotions instead of our rational, logical thoughts that we all have. We have to just do things the right way, take time to do research and consider what's really happening. This election, more than any other election, is so important. It really is. Let's try some way. I don't know how we do it. I don't know if it can be done. But we can't bring the country back if we can't even bring ourselves back to work together as a united GOP or whatever party you want to call it. The GOP has had so many problems for so long. Maybe the GOP is totally done and over with. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But whatever group you want to group people into, we need to work together for what's best for America. Not what's best for Ted Cruz, not what is best for Donald Trump and even Kasich, but what the American people, what they need, what their interests are, what this country's interests are. As I said in the beginning, I'm not pro-Trump. I'm not pro-Cruz. I am pro-America. And that's how I'm working. That's where my focus is. And I want to see our country get to the best possible place that it can be. A united country, as much as we can be united, with no mudslinging back and forth. We've had enough of that. Enough division already. That's the tactic of the progressive left. We need to come together. We know better than this. We are better than this. And we need to bring each other the respect that we should have. And let's bring the discussion and focus back on America. Thank you for joining me today. Really appreciate it. Until next time, stay safe out there. Be good to yourself. Be kind to each other. God bless you, and I'll talk to you next time. Take care.